All right, let's get into it. Today we are going to tackle one of the most powerful, complex, and deeply human things in our history, religion. And we're not just going to talk about it, we're going to dissect it. We're going to break it down into its core components, kind of like creating a sociological anatomy of belief.
So right off the bat, you might be thinking, how can you possibly put something like faith under a microscope? And that's a fantastic question. The thing is, as sociologists, our goal isn't to prove or disprove anyone's beliefs. Not at all. Instead, we use a framework to understand how religions function, how they operate as powerful systems of meaning and practice in people's lives.
And here's the roadmap for our journey today. We're going to start inside with the foundation of faith. Then, we'll look at the moral compass that guides behavior. After that, we'll explore the ultimate goal, the path to salvation. Then, we'll get into the practical stuff, connecting with the divine. And finally, we'll see how it all gets made tangible with the sacred made real.
Okay, let's dive into part 1, the foundation of faith. This is the absolute bedrock. Everything else we're going to talk about is built on top of this single core idea.
And this is it. This is the starting block. It's the belief that there's more to reality than what we can see, touch, and measure. This conviction is what steps in to answer those huge questions that science, for all its power, kind of struggles with. Like, why are we here? What's the point of it all? What happens when we die? Religion offers answers that lie in a supernatural realm.
But here's where it gets really interesting. That supernatural power isn't a one-size-fits-all concept, not even close. On one hand, you have theistic religions, like Christianity or Islam, that believe in a personal, conscious God or gods. But on the other hand, you have non-theistic paths, like in some forms of Buddhism, where the ultimate power isn't a who at all. It's more like an impersonal, cosmic law that just is.
And Brahman is a perfect example of this non-personal idea. In many Hindu traditions, Brahman isn't a being you pray to. It's not a who, it's a what. It's the ultimate, unchanging reality that everything in the universe is made of. Think of it less like a king on a throne and more like the fundamental operating system of the cosmos.
All right, on to our second component, a moral compass. So, once you establish that there's a supernatural order to things, the next logical question is, okay, so how are we supposed to act? And that's where the idea of sin or transgression comes into play. Now, looking at this through a sociological lens, sin is much more than just a personal mistake. It's a concept with a really powerful social job. By defining what breaks the harmony with the divine, a religion also defines the boundaries of its community. It creates a shared moral map telling everyone this is in bounds and this is out of bounds. It's a way to keep the group cohesive.
But it's not always about disobeying a divine being. Take karma, for instance. In religions like Hinduism and Buddhism, it's more of an impersonal law of cosmic justice. It's like spiritual physics. For every action, there's a reaction. Bad actions aren't a crime against God. They're just actions that naturally, inevitably, lead to suffering for you down the line. It's less about breaking rules and more about upsetting the natural balance of the universe.
Okay, so part 3, the path to salvation. If a religion defines a fundamental problem, whether that's sin or the suffering caused by karma, it pretty much has to offer a solution, right? And that's what this next piece is all about. It's the good news part of the equation.
And this right here, this is the central promise. This is the big payoff. A religion doesn't just give you a diagnosis of the human condition. It gives you a prescription. It offers this ultimate hope, a clear goal that can transform a belief system into a genuine, life-changing journey.
And that ultimate goal can look very different depending on where you look. In Hinduism, for example, the goal is moksha. It's liberation from what's called samsara, the endless cycle of death and rebirth. Imagine being on a cosmic merry-go-round for lifetimes. Moksha is about finally getting off the ride for good. And that's a totally different goal than, say, Christian salvation in heaven or Buddhist nirvana.
So how do you actually get there? Well, many religions provide a surprisingly practical, step-by-step guide. Take Buddhism's Noble Eightfold Path. This isn't just a list of vague ideas, it's an actionable training program for your mind and your life, designed specifically to lead you out of suffering. It's a complete roadmap.
So let's recap. We've got the core belief, the moral code, and the ultimate goal. For our fourth part, we're asking, how do believers actually do this stuff? How do they connect with the divine in their daily lives? This is where abstract faith gets turned into concrete action.
And when it comes to worship, you basically see two major approaches. First, you've got iconic worship. This is where a physical object, like a statue or an image, is used as a focal point to help connect with the divine. Then you have aniconic worship, which strictly forbids images, believing that God is too transcendent to be represented and must be worshipped directly. And this isn't just a style choice, it points to a deep theological difference.
Salah in Islam is a perfect example of this aniconic structured approach. It's a discipline for the body, mind, and spirit. And sociologically, just think about the power of this ritual. 5 times a day, millions of people all over the world stop what they're doing, face the same direction, and perform the same actions. That creates an unbelievably strong sense of global community and shared identity.
And that brings us to our fifth and final piece of the puzzle, the sacred made real. This is all about how these massive, abstract beliefs get anchored in the physical world, in stuff you can actually see and touch.
And wow, the variety here is just incredible. For some, a sacred object might be a statue that's seen as a vessel for a deity. For others, it's a specific animal, a relic from a saint, the physical scroll of a holy book, or even a natural feature like a river. All of these things act as a bridge, a physical connection point between our ordinary world and the transcendent.
And of course, this applies to places too. The very architecture of a holy building tells you so much about its theology. A Hindu temple is seen as the literal dwelling of God on earth. A Christian church is the house of God's community. And a mosque is a place for prostration, for submitting to God. You could say their architecture is like a sermon in stone.
So let's pull it all together. You start with a foundation of faith. You get a moral compass which points you down a path to salvation. You use specific practices to connect with the divine, which is made real through sacred things and places. The point of breaking it down like this isn't to judge any religion. It's to give us a powerful sociological toolkit, a framework that lets us understand and compare any belief system and see how it works for the people who follow it.
And that leaves us with one last huge question. We've taken the entire machine apart. We've looked at all the gears and levers. But what's the power source? If these are all the components of religion, what is the fundamental human need, that deep-seated need for meaning, for community, for hope, that holds it all together and makes the whole thing run? Now that is something to think about.